Iran has been very measured in its reaction, and one expert in the region says if Iran continues to downplay the Israeli attack, dismiss it as nothing, and as a result stop the escalatory cycle, it will expect to be recognized as the more rational and restrained party to this conflict. Trita Parsi is the Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, which focuses on U.S. foreign policy, and joining us now for a little bit more insight into what we can expect. Trita, great to have you with us. Can Iran really be seen as the more rational actor after launching more than 300 missiles at Israel?
Well, Iran launched those missiles after Israel broke international law and attacked Iran's consulate in Damascus, which is a blatant violation of international law of the Vienna Convention, was condemned by the majority of countries in the world and would have been condemned by the UN Security Council as well if the United States, Britain, and France had not stood in the way of that. Having said that, however, I don't think that anyone truly deserves to be called rational in this entire mess, including Iranians, the Israelis, and the Biden administration that I think could have put a stop to this much, much earlier. But given where we are right now, I think it is everyone is drawing a sigh of relief that the Iranians are playing this down, probably exaggerating dramatically in the manner of how little damage was done, etc., in order to give themselves a face-saving way out, but also for the Israelis and the rest of the region so that this escalatory cycle is broken. But if that is what they're doing, they're the ones breaking the escalatory cycle rather than the Israelis.
You know, a really important point that you mentioned, of course, this started with retaliation from Iran's side. The question is, can it end right now? But, you know, what do you know about how this operation was conducted? Is it possible these drones were launched from inside Iran? Do you have any insight about damage to infrastructure? What are you hearing?
The Iranian media has been completely silent about this, has not been sharing any information or any suggestion that there has been damage. So I find that unlikely, but it's probably not a particularly significant amount of damage. This strike appears to have been designed as a face-saving way for the Israelis to say that they did something without doing anything that truly would have been escalatory. Whether they have the capacity to fly drones from inside of Iran or not is an interesting question. The Israelis have a tremendous capacity of striking inside of Iran and have assassinated numerous Iranian officials and nuclear scientists, etc., far greater capacity than the Iranians do. But the fact that the Iranians are saying that this is coming from inside of Iran may be something they're saying in order to further reduce the pressure on themselves to take action against Israel by saying that essentially this may not have been Israel directly.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that are really fascinating right now. Iran speaking of a new equation in the Middle East, and the question about who's established the greater deterrence in the region, and then the question about whether this is the end of the tit-for-tat attacks, because there is so much concern about what it means regionally and the potential for more escalation.
Certainly, and I think one thing that in terms of whether there is a new equation or not in the region, that I think ultimately has come to the detriment of the Israelis is that there's no surprise that Israel has the capacity to be able to strike Iran and strike Iran hard if it so wished to do. What is new in this entire situation is that the Iranians have the capacity to make Israel very vulnerable. Yes, it's true, a lot of those drones were shot down, but that's largely because the United States had the time to be involved, because the Iranians had given the United States and Israel 72 hours heads up. If they hadn't, and if the U.S. wasn't involved, there would have likely been far more than the 7 missiles that nevertheless did hit Israeli bases. So I think the difference here now is that we're now in a world in which a vulnerability on the Israeli side has been revealed that didn't exist previously.
Fascinating. Great to speak to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.